Welcome once again to the Thoroughbred Grand Prix Series powered by Cosworth, where this time we're in the UK and to Donington in the heart of the Midlands. And conditions set fair so far for round 3 of the series that brings the classic F1 cars of yesteryear back to life and competitive action. It's a series proving more and more popular by the year and now boasts a regular solid field of 24 cars. And if the opening 2 rounds of the season are anything to go by, it's going to be the most competitive yet. The series kicked off on a high with the first ever invitation to support the modern Formula One teams when they created motorsport history at the Bahrain Grand Prix. And then it was back to Europe and to Jarama in Spain for round 2, where Joachim Falk's number 7 Williams worked its way up from 4th to catch and overtake the American Duncan Dayton in car 21, with Mike Wrigley, defending champion, again dominant in Class D. And that means this is the championship standings after round 2 as we head to Donington. Decided by performance in class, it means Britain's Mike Wrigley tops the standings with 2 wins out of 2, and Freddie Kumchik from Switzerland, last year's champion in the fastest Class C, sits in 2nd. And with 4 points covering the next 4 places in the championship, it's all very tight at the beginning of the season. Just adding to the pressure here in the 2 qualifying sessions as the teams battle to adapt settings and tactics to what is a fast but notoriously difficult track on which to overtake. We'll be using the slightly shorter club circuit this weekend rather than the original GP layout with the extra Melbourne hairpin, but still the 3.15 kilometre lap has 10 challenging turns. It's a track with a rich racing heritage, as our reporter Russell Fisher found out.
The UK's oldest surviving race circuit, Donington Park's early glory days date from the late 1930s, when up to 60,000 British fans would turn up to watch the all-conquering Grand Prix teams of Mercedes and Auto Union. The war effectively closed the circuit, however, and it wasn't until the late 1970s that local entrepreneur and race fanatic Tom Wheatcroft funded a major renovation programme. Part of his dream was to build a museum which today houses the world's largest collection of Grand Prix racing cars.
So let's get aboard a qualifying lap with Steve Hartley's Arrows A6 to give you an idea of how hard you have to work around this Donington track and how fast you have to anticipate to get round here in just 1 minute. That's got you exhausted. There's another 17 laps to go and 22 teams to fend off. But let's catch up on how qualifying has put various teams to the test. 2 dry sessions, the best time overall deciding your grid position. As we look first at the March 811 of Nick May. Run by the same James Watt automotive team that runs Mike Wrigley's Tyrrell, Nick May had a good run in Jarama to eventually take 6th. And here at Donington, he gets on the first half of the grid with a lap of 1 minute 05.01. The outside view of the man who took us on our onboard lap, Steve Hartley, in his Arrows A6. He's been full on all day, relishing this track, but sometimes he was trying just a little too hard. Only damage to the ego though, and he's on the grid at number 9. Hartley is always neck and neck with his teammate in the Mirage Motorsport team, David Abbott. But this time, Abbott's Ensign N180 gets the edge. That 1 minute 04.28, putting him into 8th position on the grid. And to emphasise how close it's going to be, there was only 1/4 of a second separating him from Dan Collins in the Lotus 91. The car originally driven by Nigel Mansell and Elio De Angelis, who took it to victory in the 1982 Austrian Grand Prix. Today, Collins claims 8th on the grid. Mike Wrigley runs the Tyrrell 012 that's been so reliable the last couple of seasons and brought in the Class D wins that made him overall champion last year. But his 1 minute 3.91 shows he can mix it with the best of them, as as he drops in at number 7 on the grid, hoping for 3 wins out of 3 in his class. It's the first time out this year for Christian Glazel from Germany in the Brabham BT49, originally driven by Riccardo Patrese. Designed by South African Gordon Murray, the same model carried Nelson Piquet to his first world title in '81. Glazel takes 5th on the grid, with 1 minute 3.38. Freddie Kumchik from Switzerland, normally up front, is 4th after finding it hard to get dialed in.
I tried to find my line, my setup, but then I have had to go a little bit in the grass. I was side by side with a little bit of lower car, and then it was my fault. I crashed the car a little bit. All the back was damaged, wings, gearbox parts, but we managed it. We are back now. I'm sure I tried to win, but if second, I am happy to.
Another Swiss driver, Hubertus Bolson, has an Arrows A4, originally driven by his fellow countryman Mark Surer. He's relatively happy with his 1 minute 02.86.
Yeah, technically it was good. It was bloody traffic. I believe you can drive 0-1 time or even a high 0-0 time. And my best time just having very bad traffic where you lose a second or 2 immediately. Because it's a very nice track, you know, you're swinging left and right. There's no room to easy pass someone. It's very tight. It's very difficult to pass even in the race. It's basically only one place, but that's just the engine where you just accelerate like the others doing, and then you don't really gain a lot. We're all cooked with water, so we're all about the same.
In Harama, Bolson collided with this man, Richard Eyre, when they were both contending for a podium finish with 2 laps to go. Eyre is fast again, but he's cautious.
Well, qualifying really was just one session for me. I went fast in the first session and then got caught up in the traffic in the second session. It's particularly bad here. Because of the short straights, and so it always seems, I don't really understand why it's so bad, but it always seems particularly bad when we come to Donington. But most English guys know the circuit very well, and really I think most of the continentals know it equally as well. I hope it doesn't rain, because it's very, very slippery when it rains here. It always was slippery, but I'm told, and I did a little practice in the start of the season before the season actually got underway, and it was terribly slippery then. Made it very interesting, but you couldn't go very fast. The wheels just span wherever you went.
But the man up front is John Wilson, first time out this season in the Tyrrell 011, in which Michele Alboreto won the '82 US Grand Prix. Wilson has a calm confidence about him, built on the solid improvements that they've made during the day, climaxing with his 1 minute 02.56.
Well, we made a bit of a setup change from the first session. We had a lot of understeer, so we changed the car. And I think even though the track was probably slower because of the previous races, putting down a lot of oil and etc., we managed to get a clear lap, and that was pretty much it. The car was better, in short. Donington's a good track, it's a nice, easy flowing track. They said it's a driver's track, but I'm not actually convinced, because I think it just flows quite easily. And actually, since they've resurfaced it, I think it's slightly odd, actually. It's less initial grip. It seems to take a long time to get the tyres warmed up, and normally takes you a lap. And for some reason, it seems to take you about 3 laps, so I'm not quite sure. It's got slightly different characteristics, but pretty much it's the same old good old Donington we know. Well, it was the Las Vegas '82 winning chassis that was 6, which Alboreto won in Las Vegas. And prior to my owning it, Paul Ingram owned it, and the same people who ran him, Victoria Garage, Terry King, still run the car, so they know it pretty well and they engineer it. And it's always been a great car. It's a really, really good car. It's just we haven't had a chance to show how good it is because we've been beset with problems. I mean, last year I complained about the car all year. It just didn't grip at the rear, and we found out eventually in winter rebuild that the front anti-roll bar was broken at the tub. So we're running without any front anti-roll bar, and we run it really stiff, full stiff. So the car was undrivable, and we kept on checking the rear end. So I always knew it was a good car. It is a good car, really, really good car. So yeah, it's great. We've actually got a problem with the clutch, so the boys are going to work on that. They had to push start me, so that'll be quite key. Otherwise, I might have to start from pit lane. But yeah, it'll be close. It's like in a race. It always gets a bit fraught, and you make more mistakes than you do normally. But yeah, hopefully we'll see.
So everyone's had their chance, and after all that, let's take a look at the grid overall. And Eyre and Wilson will be neck and neck into that first corner, that's for sure. And Kumchik and Bolson are not known for hanging back either. So, some fireworks no doubt into that all-important first turn, but the weather's got some tricks to play too. Join us for it all after the break. Welcome back to Donington, where the weather had a little surprise for everyone in the warm-up session. Well, the rain had them worried for a little while this morning, but it's clear, sunny and dry for the start of the race as they line up on the grid. Revs rising, tension building. The red lights will come on. Then they'll be out. Green flag all clear. We're ready to go. And there's hands waving from a cockpit way back on the left there. Someone in trouble. The yellow flags are out, but the red lights are gone and we're away. The race has started anyway. And Richard Eyre in the number 6 Williams makes his move down past Wilson. Bolson holds off Kumshik as they go round Redgate. But Eyre's gone wide. And here we are on board. Wilson's through on the inside. And so's Bolson. A bold move by Eyre, but he couldn't hold it round the corner. So it's Wilson leading them round into the old hairpin. Then Bolson, then Eyre, then Kumshik, then Glaisel. And it's poor John Delane in the old Tyrrell, who was balked by Ian Barrowman's stall on the grid. Less than 40 seconds for the marshals to clear it as the leaders come through McLean's and head up to Coppice now. Wilson goes up a gear, breaks away at the front. And Richard Eyre having another look down the inside at Bolson. But Bolson looked to have that covered, and the marshals thankfully getting Barrowman clear of the grid. Hopefully he'll restart. As Wilson comes down Starkey Straight at approaching 180 miles an hour, then hard on the brakes for the right and left through Goddard's. Bolson through, Eyre through, and Christian Glaisel in the Brabham following his teammate Freddie Kumshik through. And down the Wheatcroft Straight to end lap 1. Bolson in the orange arrows fast enough out of the corner to just get a gap that leaves Richard Eyre without a chance of slipstreaming. But round Redgate, and Richard Eyre just holding back maybe, thinking about where he can have another go at the Swiss driver. Here they come, this is the battle for second. As we go round the old hairpin and up towards Starkey's Bridge. And we go on board with Eyre as he sweeps left round the Schwantz curve. And then it'll be hard braking into McLean's. Oh, Bolson's gone wide, he's on the dirt. Now there's a chance for Eyre as they hurtle up towards Coppice. Eyre's down the inside, but here comes Bolson again. He's got the speed to carry him round the outside as they head off down Starkey Straight. Meanwhile, John Delane in the ex-Jackie Stewart Tyrrell has been flying since his delayed start, and he's caught up with fellow A-class contender Ian Pugh in the yellow-green Brabham BT34. On board with Delane again as we head up to McLean's. This for the lead in A-class. Delane really keen for a result, having blown an engine in Bahrain and missed Harama, and he powers past. Look at the work he has to do in the old car cockpit. That's racing as it used to be. He heads on to Starkey's as well as we catch up with the leaders coming around to complete the lap. And there's Ian Barrowman in front, just about to be lapped. He did get started after all, that's a good, but he'll be looking to keep safe and wide as Wilson leads the Flying Five at the front round Redgate on lap 3 and down into the old hairpin. And he seems to have command of the situation at the moment and a clear track in front. And just locking up there, John Crowson's red ensign 177. He was fortunate to make the start after a bad spin in that wet warm-up, but currently second in Class B and obviously trying hard, as already the leaders are back round onto Starkey Straight, coming down for the end of lap 3. And the exit speed here from Goddard so crucial. Richard Eyre close behind Bolson as they go through, but Bolson seems to have the gearing to give him the grunt out of the corner, and it's impossible for Eyre to get into the slipstream zone. Wilson, meanwhile, pushing on, constant pressure in this top 5. And the pressure looks like it's too much for Christian Glaisel's Brabham. That's a shame, he was in 5th and running well. But the German driver out, and it looks like John Crowson, some sort of problem in the cockpit there. It's a hectic start here at Donington, but with Tyrrell's leading 3 of the classes, time to reflect on this great team with one of its best known drivers.
Ken Tyrrell was the biggest influence in my life outside of my own family. He made me in a way, I suppose, and I certainly wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Ken Tiller. He was a great example to all sorts of people about how to live, his commitments, his integrity. He was just an unusual man. He was a great man to work with. He never thought anybody worked for him. He always worked with people.
Ken Tyrrell at the time was really the Pope of Formula One, and to be with him and to have the chance to drive the car was great.
A man that you could totally trust and depend upon, and he made very fast racing cars, but they were always safe and robust.
Jackie Stewart was always the professional, an extremely good driver, perhaps not the quickest all the time, but with the ability to think race strategy and still drive a car. You still see it today, of course, and they tend to be champions just the same.
I worked with Ken, and it was he who started off with Ken as the designer of the Tyrrell car right from the very beginning, and he was a good man. And we had a very competitive racing car with a fantastic Ford engine that at that time was good enough to take on the world and beat them. Jim Clark was the man I most wanted to drive like, but Francois Sever was a great friend, Bruce McLaren, Piers Courage, Graham Hill. Francois was my own teammate, so I spent a lot of time with him, but there's so many good friends that it was a good time for that. Wonderful. I decided when I retired I would never race again. I've never raced since, and I'm not going to race.
Well, two great Tyrrells side by side as race leader John Wilson overtakes John Delane. But the leader locks up badly, maybe brake wear a problem. The front four are to remain unchanged. Meanwhile, backmarker Nick Reaney ahead of Mike Wrigley in 5th, Nick May in 6th, and Dan Collins in the number 11 Lotus is 7th. And right behind, Steve Hartley, just in front of teammate Dave Abbott, 8th and 9th. And as we said before, these two always neck and neck, and Hartley here got the drop on Abbott off the start, and now he's intent on catching that group in front. Round Redgate, sliding on the dirt there, and someone sliding off in front to the left, and something flying as well, and that's Nick May. He's okay, but it looked like some sort of coming together with the backmarker Nick Reaney in the Surtees. So coming through now, this means this is the battle for 9th place, as Alistair Morrison in the Tyrrell 012 tries down the inside of Chris Perkins in the yellow Fittipaldi, with Abbott Cogan in the red and white McLaren on their tail and Rodrigo Gallego following. But next time around at Goddard's, it was to be crunch time for this group. Perkins still holding off Morrison, Abbott Cogan coming through with Gallego following, but there's a squeal of tyres as Gallego slips through. Alistair Morrison has spun it, and that looked like Cogan involved in the accident as well, and yes, serious trouble for him. He looks as though he's come together with the arm coat, and that sets up a real battle for the Class B leadership as Portugal's Rodrigo Gallego has clear track to close in on Chris Perkins' Fittipaldi. And a lap later, the yellows at Goddard's allowed Gallego to close right up, and he came onto the Wheatcroft straight with enough momentum to pick his time and pull alongside Perkins down towards Redgate, where the Portuguese driver was clear ahead to take over 9th place and the Class B leadership. The question was whether Perkins could now hit back at him. Meanwhile, Hartley and Abbott had still been locked together in their battle for 6th place. Both these cars run by the Mirage Motorsport team, but no team orders in TGP racing, that's for sure. Abbott in the red, white and blue Ensign 180, lap after lap, looking for a way through, just keeping the pressure on, trying to force Hartley into a mistake, a lapse of concentration maybe. And this time, Hartley a little rough through the double apex of Coppice. And that's going to mean reduced speed onto Starkey Straight. Could it be enough for Abbott to come through? Neck and neck down Starkey Straight, and it's Abbott who breaks later into Goddard's. Can he make it stick? He does. And Hartley will be furious with himself after being so race perfect so far. Down this straight they go. What can Hartley do about this now? Abbott's got the momentum into Redgate. Hartley cuts in, he throws it in. Oh, too much. And that's that battle over for the moment. But lots more action going on down the field. And onto the last lap, it was Wilson, just past backmarker Delane, in time for Redgate. It was crucial. Balson frustrated as the Englishman gets away. On board with Delane, he sticks to his line, and that means Balson will have to come to his left down the outside. He sweeps after Wilson. Delane raises his hands, and that means Richard Eyre and Freddie Kumschick are clear to rock it past in the Williams. It's do or die now for the front four as they fly up to McLean's, and Wilson with the breathing space again. But the pack closing in, all four pushing that extra little harder with half a lap to go. Up they go to Coppice, on board with Richard Eyre. He's been chasing Bolson's tail all afternoon after that first corner mistake. He seems to have the greater straight line speed. Can he make it pay now on Starkey Straight for the last time? Coming down behind Bolson. Can he get into the braking zone behind the Swiss driver? Wilson is through. He looks as though it's got his safe, but Bolson, Eyre and Kumschick all chasing for the line, and Bolson's slowing. He's slowing right down. Eyre is past, and so's Kumschick. Eyre takes second, Kumschick third. Wilson celebrates the win, but problems for Bolson within 50 yards of the finish line. John Wilson oblivious to it all. He never cracked under the pressure, but Bolson drifting down the hill to fourth place. He's indicating he's run out of fuel. Let's take a look at what happened from Richard Eyre's onboard through Goddard's. And the switchback enough to starve the Arrow's engine of fuel, with Eyre through and just pipping Kumschick by less than 0.2 of a second. And it was Dan Collins benefiting from Mike Wrigley's gear selection problems to come in fifth, and David Abbott stayed clear of Hartley to take sixth. In the classes, the honours going to John Delane, Rodrigo Gallego, John Wilson and Steve Hartley. But after the race, we got the reactions of the first three home.
I found my speed, let's say, in lap 5 or 6, and then, but soon we have had back markers, you know, and a lot of overtakings, and some cars, they crashed pieces on the track, you know, a yellow flag as well. It was really, really a hard, interesting race, you know.
First off the line, got into the corner first, but unfortunately I slid a little bit wide at Redgate. I thought I was going into the Kittiletta. That put me back to third, and really I struggled after that to actually get anywhere. The Virtus was somewhat wide, but that's his right to be that way. Fortunately, I either ran out of petrol or ran out of gears right at the end, so just desserts really.
My race was not without its problems. The engine cut out about 4 times, as if it had run out of petrol, and we had no idea what that is. It was sort of, you know, literally, and then back on. And I had really, my fronts were just locking up the whole time. It was a minor problem in practice, but not enough to worry me, and I thought if it was dry, I'd be fine, but it was a real problem for the race.
So how does all that leave our championship overall? Well, Portugal's Rodrigo Gallego now shares the lead with Mike Wrigley, with Hartley, Kumschick, Morrison and now Eyre locked in the chasing pack. So as all the class leaders celebrate here in Donington, we look forward now to the next round in Monza in Italy to see whether Rodrigo Gallego can continue his championship challenge. We'll see you then.